The topic today is maximize performance and scalability of Enterprise Manager itself. So we'll be talking about self-monitoring, near-zero downtime patching, and some other great new technology and enhancements. With me is Sumesh Balkrishnan and Shefali Balgava, and myself, Tim Mooney. And thank you to our audience for joining. This is a deep dive Enterprise Manager webcast, a part of the webcast series. So we have a number on the calendar. If you like what you see and you'd like to see more of these, head over to the webcast series calendar, and there you'll find other sessions on the calendar, as well as a bunch of sessions that are recorded. So this session is for you, really. We want to be interactive with you. And to do that, we have the Q&A panel on the lower part of your screen. Use that throughout the session. We have development experts online there to support you. So ask your specific questions and we can get back to you and help you have a better experience with the technology. Next slide. So a little context, about 2 months ago, Edward Screven, our Chief Corporate Architect, did our big announcement, Enterprise Manager 13.5. Some of the key pillars of what he talked about is shown on his screen, hybrid cloud management. He went through a nice little case study, that being Oracle itself, both Oracle IT for us employees, as well as Oracle Cloud, all being managed using Enterprise Manager. So some big tasks there for Enterprise Manager. He also talked about operations automation, full lifecycle automation for helping DBAs and IT staff scale. And lastly, some focus on extensibility using open standards-based extensions to interoperate with your favorite third-party tools. So that video is on YouTube, and please review it. It's a really good session. There's actually some demos in there, and it's about a half hour long. Next slide. So part of the announcement, one of my responsibilities was to talk to some of our customers about participating in our announcement. And you can see we have some pretty good names here. AT&T, wow, this was an eye-opening conversation for me. The challenge, the enormity of the task of monitoring and managing their 16,000 plus database fleet. So as you can imagine, super critical, and they're really excited about the stuff we're going to be talking about here today. Same thing with Dell. They're managing thousands of databases and applications. Enterprise Manager is their go-to for monitoring that fleet. Cerner, that was a little different twist. This was interesting. Nick talked about security as their highest priority. One of the topics we'll get into today is this near-zero downtime patching for Enterprise Manager. He liked it because he's got to keep his systems up, but now he can stay current with his patch levels to improve his security posture using this feature. I mean, obviously, we've all heard about the SolarWinds scenario. None of us wants to be the next SolarWinds victim. So this was a very germane topic from Nick. And lastly, my conversation with CDTI, the minute Naveen said this, I wrote it down. Enterprise Manager is our gold standard for monitoring and management. In context, he was talking about they've built all their processes around Enterprise Manager. They do have other tools, and his point was Enterprise Manager is the gold standard of which everything else is compared and contrasted with. So really powerful stories for me. Hopefully these testimonials give you examples of what other people are doing and considering. Let's go to the next slide. So here's our agenda. We're going to be talking about Enterprise Manager, the resilient platform, Manage the manager. So how do you get a notification when the notification system is down? So we'll talk about that. Or how do you make sure when you added all those new targets or managing new environments, how do you make sure your system management system has the capacity? So we'll talk about that. Self-monitoring alerting, both at the OMS repository level, excuse me, and then we'll switch it up over to Shefali, who's going to talk about job system diagnostics and some enhancements there. Both Sumesh and Shefali have demonstrations that we'll go through, so you'll see firsthand how these things look. And then lastly, NearZero Downtime Patching, maybe the crescendo of our session. And then, as I said, we'll have some time dedicated for Q&A at the end. So with that, let me turn it over to you, Sumesh.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. So, in today's session, we will cover on the manage the manager functionality that we introduced in 13.5. So, as part of the agenda, we have split into two things. One, in the first part, we are going to talk about how we can keep your enterprise manager always healthy, because for customers, enterprise manager is the most critical monitoring tool for managing their entire state of database applications and so on. So one of the key important tasks for the EM as an admin is to ensure that the enterprise manager is performant and it's also scalable, and it's also available all the time. So available all the time, meaning it can be during the planned maintenance, and also even without the planned maintenance, he has to ensure the enterprise manager and its subsystems are in a healthy state. So one of the key things, or what are the symptoms that as an admin they used to get from their internal users, is that EM, when they access the console pages, right, they report that the pages are very slow, it is not loading, or I'm not getting the notifications on time. I see my jobs are getting, when I submit a job, I'm getting the job into the suspended state, or it is going into the queue and it is getting never executed. So some of these can trigger a lot of events on the enterprise manager system itself, because all these issues or the early warnings, where if you don't look into this on priority, what happens is this can potentially bring down your system altogether, right? Because the number of example, if you have a huge backlog on the job system, then potentially it could bring down the OMS system altogether. So it is an important task for administrator to ensure he keeps an eye on the enterprise manager subsystem so that it always running healthy, and whenever there is an issue, there is a quick remediation is taken so that the system is always up and running. So these are some of the key important symptoms that we got to know from the customers and from our experience with the internal users as well. So these are some of the things. So we'll see how the manage the manager, which is one of the key important tool, which is kind of hidden inside the EM, which actually serves the administrator to a great extent in solving many of these problems. At least it will, the manage the manager page that we have in the enterprise manager gives a lot of insights into the to the administrator to look and see what went wrong at what time. Though it gives a lot of data, so with the data he can interpret. And we also have this EM DAG kit, which is also a most powerful and a very good tool, where these two tools can combine and administrator can get into insight as what went wrong at what time. Example, if there is a huge backlog on the job system, and he can see what went wrong on the job system, why the backlog is getting increased, and what caused the backlog to get increased on the job system, right? So if you look at the manage the manager, or in an overview, we have different components that we manage. So one of the first thing is the health overview, because we show the overall health of the EM system, including the repository, including the notifications, including the loader, and all these are the subsystems which EM internal OMS actually make use to run properly. And the second one is the repository and OMS, which is again managed as a target in EM. So this is internally monitored as a target, and our central agent, which is monitoring this EM rep target, is responsible for running some of the internal jobs like DBMS jobs. So ensuring the health of the repository and OMS is also critical for making sure your EM is always performant and scalable, right? Because on the repository side, we have this sizing that we've implemented to ensure that whenever there is a change from medium to large, right, or from large to extra large, you're getting notified saying that your system configurations have changed. Now that you have to go back and then revisit your database parameters or on the OMS side parameters. And also, along with that, on the repository side, we show a lot of metric data, the incoming metric data loading, and we also show the number of the tables, which is occupying more space. So all these things, you can fine tune it over a period of time. You can see how you can load, because the metric data is getting loaded, and you can fine tune depending upon what priority that you want to set it to load the data inside the repository. Like example, we have something called the target properties, where you can define the life cycle status of a target. So you can always give the priority for production targets. So those data gets loaded at the first priority. And similarly for the non-prod targets, you can say that at a P2 level, priority 2, so that those targets from the non-prod can also get loaded inside the repository. So these are some of the fine-tuning methods that we have. So this MTM actually gives a lot of insights and one of the valuable tool to monitor the EM system. And the third one is about the job diagnostics. So job diagnostics, again, it's one of the key important things, because everything that you do in EM, it's all driven through the job system, because it has its own thread pool, it has got its own dispatcher. So, and it also allows administrator to handle and set the respective thread pools, and also to allocate how to process each job's request, right? Because we have something called a user short, user log, and it's all how you can configure. Because if you're heavily running the job system in EM, then you can always go and fine tune those thread pools on the job system. So this job diagnostics that we have introduced in 13.4 in some of the RUs can really help the administrators to diagnose what went wrong with a particular job step, or you can actually go and diagnose. It has a dashboard, and it has got a lot of details in it, which actually talks about how you can go and debug an issue if there is a stuck job for a long time, or if you want to see the number of suspended jobs, or you can see why it got suspended and for what reason it got suspended. So all this diagnosability has been enhanced. And the last one is about the agent, because agent is again a critical component. We have to ensure that it's always up and running, and it is always monitoring the critical targets, and it is sending the correct metrics and alerts to the OMS. So maintaining the state of the agent is also important. And if you see any issues where the agent is going into unreachable state, or when it goes to a availability evaluation error, so it always good to analyze why the agent went into that state. So we have something called a symptom analysis on the agent, where you can just run it to see what went wrong, or you can take the agent metric browser to see why the agent has gone into metric evaluation error. So all these things you can do from the MTM as part of the MTM health checks. So in a nutshell, this MTM is one of the powerful tools, and we have this in EM. So it gives a lot of insights to the administrator in diagnosing issues with the EM subsystem itself. So with that, the next thing where we want to focus is the new things that we have done in 13.5, right? Because MTM as a whole thing is a widespread thing. So here in this webinar, we'll be covering mostly the new things that we have done in 13.5. So one of the key important things that we took and then we have done in 13.5 is about the sizing or the compliance standards. Because this is one of the base for the EM, because once you have the correct sizing defined, Then the next step is to go and tune the system. So the first step is to ensure you're following the sizing guidelines that we have defined for Enterprise Manager. So if there are any deviations in the sizing, then definitely that could cause your performance also, right? Because if you're not having the enough resources on the repository or on the OMS, for example, if you're not running on a recommended hardware, like example, if you have a large system, but if you're running still with say 16 cores of CPUs on the database or on the OMS, then definitely over a period of time, you will see there'll be a lot of issues on the hardware side, right? Because the CPUs are less, so there'll be a lot of resource constraint in that, right? So with that in mind, the first thing is to ensure what we have done is we have enabled the sizing compliance standard, which is enabled by default, which can go and automatically check what is the current configuration. And then if the current configuration is matching with the expected configuration or not. If it is not matching, then there will be a violation that will be sent to the users through the out-of-band notifications. So this is a periodic check that actually runs behind the scene. And if there is any deviation with respect to the repository parameters or with respect to any of the hardware sizing, then it actually reports and then it sends the violation to the customer. And it also has a dashboard which can actually show what is the score for this because we have integrated this with the compliance framework, right? So I'll show that as a product demo. And then the next component is our MTM, right? Like in the MTM, the health overview, what we do is we actually converted all this into a metric, and then we are storing it inside the repository. So if there is any issues, say example, if there is a continuous backlog on the loader subsystem, we actually monitor that for some time. And if the backlog is not getting cleared over a period of time, we just capture that and show as an alert in the MTM page. So similarly, like example, if any table inside the repository, example, if some of the AQ tables requires fragmentation, we actually detect that and then we show that, okay, this notification AQ table needs to be fragmented. And we also give a resolution saying that what you can do to resolve that issue. So in the initial cut of 13.5, we are just alerting the users. But when we progress with further RUs in 13.5, we have goals to integrate with, say, runbooks so that we give you the guided resolution to fix for a particular alert, which is raised through the MTM notifications. And also moving on with the further RUs in 13.5, we also plan to give auto-tune wherever possible so that it is less work on the administrator to just go and fix it. So wherever possible, there is we want to automate or autocorrect the actions. So that is also something planned in the future RUs of 13.5. So some of them, these are the two important things that we'll be focusing in today's webinar. And as part of that, I'll just quickly show how we are showing the alerts and the compliance standards in the EM console. So it will be useful for when you go back, if you have a 13.5 environment, it will be easy to go back and check in your environment. So this is one of my 13.5 environment, which is an internal environment. So here I've just logged in as a super administrator. So as soon as when you come to the MTM page from here, like setup, manage cloud control, and when you go to health overview, you will see that an alert. You will see there is an immediate attention required from the administrator. So if you see what is that, if you just click on this, it will take you to the alert section where it will show you what is that critical alert that requires immediate attention from the administrator. So for this simulation, I just created some alert for the resources thing. But in general, this page will show all the alerts. Example, like I said, the loader, if there is a loader backlog, then it will say that the backlog is increasing on the loader. Please go. It will also show the resolution as to how to fix those things, right? And also in terms of some of the tables that requires fragmentation, that will also, it gets captured here, and we show what is the resolution to take to fix that error. So this is one of the things. And how we are sending this notification? We are sending this notification through the out-of-band notification method. So all the customer need to do is they just need to configure the out-of-band notification. And the steps are already defined here. If you click on this, it will take you to the steps. You need to just set it on the agent. So it is a one-time effort. So once you set it, whenever there is an alert or whenever there is a severity which is fatal or which is critical, it automatically sends an alert to the administrator, so that he can go and look and take the immediate action to resolve it. So this is one of the key important things that we have done. And the other thing that we have done with respect to the sizing is our compliance. So here, if you go to the compliance dashboard, this shows the overall, this is the overall compliance dashboard for any target. So in this, OMS and repository is one of our target, right? And if you, this is the compliance standard we have enabled for the repository and OMS target, and it's enabled by default. So if you want to see what it is, then you can go to the sizing. You can just click on the compliance standard, and we have three things here. One is for the repository and OMS hardware, and the other one is for the database settings, because the database settings will vary for a small deployment, for a medium deployment, and for a large deployment. So if you look at the hardware, the sizing here, and if you click on violation events, then it actually shows what is there in the current system and what is expected. So this expected value is actually coming from our sizing guideline, right? Because this is the compliance standard that we have built out of the sizing guideline. So it actually compares what is there in the system and with what is expected. And if you see there is any deviation, right? You can clearly see there is a deviation from the actual value with the expected value. So the out-of-band notification will be enabled, and the violation is sent to the customer. So these are some of the things, like example, on the heap side, where we are expecting 4 GB, but it is currently having 1.7. Because if the heap also contributes to some of the performance, and sometimes if we don't take care of the JVM heap, then it can run out of memory also. Over a period of time, it can run out of memory. So these are some of the things that we are capturing and showing it in the MTM as part of the compliance standard. So similarly, for the hardware thing, we can just you can just see what is for the repository parameters, like what is expected, right, and what is the actual value. And all these are again important critical parameters that you need to tune it for making sure the repository is running healthy and it is performing. And also it also makes sure that these parameters are set properly so that the repository always runs in a healthy state. So this is some of the things that we have done. And the other thing is you can also get the report. This compliance dashboard provides an ability for you to get the violation reports, where it will list all the violations and the things for the OMS repository from the target perspective. So this is the compliance standard which is enabled. So from here also you can see what is the overall score of the compliance for this particular target. So this is I want to ensure that this is what we have done in 13.5, and we continue to add more enhancements. But in the first cut, like I said, we want to make sure the baseline is set for the sizing, and then we want to move on to the alerting part. And then once, because these two we have it done in 13.5, and the next part for us is to go and auto-tune or auto-correct wherever possible, and then also make some guided resolutions through the runbook mechanism. So this is the demo that I want to show here. And moving on to my slides, I've just captured the same thing as part of the screenshot. So this is what I've just showed you, that this is a sizing compliance standard that we have enabled. And then this is in the dashboard, you can take a look into overall things, right? And EM sizing is one of the target that gets displayed in the dashboard. And then you also have, like I showed you, for the repository parameters and for the OMS, what is the actual value and what is expected. And then same for the repository init parameters. And this is the compliance report where you can save it for future if you want to compare what value that is being set in the repository or on the OMS side. So, and this is the MTM alert that I just showed you, because this is one important thing, because whenever you do an upgrade from 13.3 to 13.5 or from 13.4 to 13.5, the very first thing that you should do is, after the upgrade is completed, it is always good to come to the MTM page to see what you're like. Are you seeing any behavior changes? Example, are you seeing a huge back off on the agent side or on the loader side or on the job system side, right? So one of the best practices to make sure after the upgrade is done, when you log into the EM console, it's always go and check the MTM page and see whether you're seeing any behavior change with respect to all these subsystems. If you notice any of the things, please immediately take an attention to just fix it, so that after the upgrade is done, your system is in a healthy state for monitoring the critical targets. So that is one of the important things that I want to ensure that you actually perform after you install or upgrade. Basically, the main important thing is on the upgrade. So after the upgrade is done, please ensure that the EM subsystems are running and it doesn't show any of the behavior changes with respect to backlog, or there will be a lot of a spike in the notifications and other things, right? So this is one of the important things. Yeah, so I'll hand it over to Shefali to talk about the job system and what we have done in 13.5. Shefali, over to you.
Yeah, so if you can stop sharing, I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shefali Bhargava, and we are going to dig a little bit deeper into the job system diagnostics that Sumesh introduced earlier today. So with 13.5 and also backported to 13.4 RU8, we introduced some enhanced job diagnostic dashboards. These dashboards are primarily for our users and the job administrator to monitor the key components of the underlying job system. You will be able to drill down to the job activity level to see which are the problem jobs that are kind of overloading the system and causing blocks. So the job system dashboard is different from the job activity UI that you are accustomed to using, where you normally just submit jobs and you see how they're doing. This is actually focused on the problem areas of the job system. So this is accessed from the MTM area, and I will walk you through that in a demo shortly. But basically our focus is on, what jobs and steps are being retried, and, kind of slowing the system down. There are queues, where we have a list of jobs that need to run in a certain order that are blocked because of underlying system issues or issues with our agents not running smoothly. And overall, you can see job execution performance data through some of these screens too. We have a job dispatcher services dashboard as well, to see the health status for the job dispatcher services in a single as well as a multi-OMS system. So each OMS system has its own dispatcher, so we can view all of the dispatches through these dashboards. And you can view and get configuration details about the thread pool and connection pool details for the dispatcher. So we have different kinds of jobs, which are user jobs, which are long running or short running. And we have thread pools assigned to these jobs so that you can monitor how the system is doing. So if the user long job is getting heavily used, you could increase the size of its thread pool and such. So this way you can fine tune and configure the parameters of the job system, and keep an eye on the performance of the system overall. So with that overview, I'm going to jump into the demonstration itself, so that we get a better idea on how it's running. So
just to interrupt you just for one quick second. For those in the audience, we're going to do this demonstration, but at the same time, you can use that Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. And we won't interrupt Shefali anymore with that, but we do have some experts on the line to support you there. Sorry about that, Shefali. Go ahead.
No problem. Thanks, Tim. So, from your welcome home screen, you can go to the Manage the Manager section, or MTM like we like to call it, by going to Setup, Manage Cloud Control, and the Job Diagnostics is the new dashboard that we've added. The other areas that were added were, so here's the Job Systems dashboard. So as you can see over here on the left, we are focusing on the retried jobs, retried steps, what queues are kind of blocked, and what are the jobs executing within the system. And we can delve into each of these individually through different screens. So on this page, we see an overview of all the dispatchers in the system. So as you can see over here, there are 6 OMS dispatchers, and they're healthy and running. There's also status on the step scheduler. So the step scheduler is the one that takes whatever jobs are ready for execution now, and then gets them ready for the dispatcher to give it for execution. So the step scheduler, when it was last run, when it is going to run next. And then of course there is a status on the bookkeeping steps, like, which jobs have failed, which jobs are being retried. So there is a process that takes care of all of those. So we have that. And then you can see the steps processed over a period of time that are being processed in the system. And as well as you can see the table down here if you want to look at the actual steps, and OS commands, or whether they're execute SQL commands that are running, and what kind of job types they are, and how long they're running for, etc. So we can gather this information, over periods of 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, 1 month, so you can view details on that. And then for the steps process, we also we also gather information to the last five minutes, so that you can see, if there's if anything is if any discrepancies in the system. So 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, so you can kind of monitor your system on that basis. So the next thing that we're going to look into is the retried jobs. So as you can see over here, there are about 51 jobs that are being retried, and each job has been retried for 100 times. At which point, it goes into a suspended by user status. So that is 5,100 jobs that are being retried because of some issue in the underlying system. So you can actually go deeper into each of these jobs and see what is going on. And you get to the all too familiar job activity page. Over here, you can see what target it's happening on, and what is the job output that is being displayed here. So in this particular case, you can see that, NMO is not set for this particular host. And because of this, it is going into a loop and it's not able to connect. So NMO is one of those things that is set for permissions using the root.sh script. So when you install the agent, usually you have to run a root.sh script to set up all the NMO permissions. And if that's not done, then the agent can't execute the jobs on behalf of the OS. So this is the underlying problem here. And then, using this, you can basically debug that the issue was the NMO, and then you can go ahead and run the root.sh script, and then unblock all the jobs that are running on that agent, so that, you are basically unblocking all of these jobs. So another thing that this dashboard you can go and see is the longest queues. So, jobs like adding a target or deleting a target is a top level job, which has a whole bunch of other jobs underneath it for cleanup and everything else, which have to be done in a certain sequential order. So queues are basically meant for that. So if any job in a particular queue is stuck, or the head of the queue is stuck, all the subsequent jobs are not going to run. So it's going to be a stuck queue. So in this particular case, we have a queue that is suspended because the agent is not ready, and it has 92 scheduled executions that are blocked. So you can actually drill down into the queue details, and you can see which target it is running on. It's an agent kind of job, and then you can see the job which is at the head of the queue, which is causing the issues. In this particular case, it is this delete target job, and you can go and click on that, and then you will see that you'll see the name of the target, and then the agent is not ready is the summary over here. So then you know that there is something wrong with the agent on this particular target, and then you can go ahead and you can search for the target name to see what's going on. And like you can figure out that in this particular case, the agent is blocked because there is a plugin mismatch. So issues with the agent can be, the agent is not ready, there is some security, some configuration issues, or it is in blackout, or some issue that is blocking the rest of the queue from running. Can be basically figured out by kind of following the path that the diagnostic tool is kind of sending you through. So in this case, if we fix the plugin mismatch, then the agent is not blocked anymore, and then the rest of the jobs can run from the queue. So going back here, from the job system dashboard, another dashboard that we've added is the dispatchers dashboard. So you can go to it from here. And what this does is it gives you an overall view of the dispatchers that are running in the system. So dispatchers is the one that actually takes the jobs that are ready for execution and dispatches them to the worker threads, to the thread pools and as so on. So for each of these dispatchers, you can see what the thread pool usage is, what is the number of maximum steps that each can process. So in this particular case, you can see that the user short is set up at max 50 and long is for 24 steps. And you can see details on each of these. You can also see the individual information for the last 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day. Like you can see over here, the user short usage has reached 81%. And so, if it is continuously maxing out at 100%, you know that you should, try to increase the user short pool because the load is higher at this point. So you would know to basically increase the pool size for the jobs that are going to maximum usage. Just like this, each of these, each of these dispatcher services have their own page, and you can go through each one of them and see what their usage is and monitor them individually. So that's pretty much a good overview of the job diagnostics dashboards. We are definitely planning to add more updates over the subsequent release updates for 13.5, where you will be able to configure the thread pool parameters that we just talked about. You will be able to configure them on the fly without restarting the OMS and manage your system load based on what is running in the system at that time. So going on to, I've also gone ahead and put these in the slide deck so that when you have access to it, you can go ahead and see that. Job steps, throughput over time, the overview of dispatchers, etc. And then the retry job screen that we went through. And then the queue details that you can view based on what's stuck at the head of the queue and what target type it is stuck at. And of course, you can drill down to the job activity level for all of the jobs that you're monitoring through the diagnostic dashboard. So you can see what is really going on at the under the system level, because sometimes it's not the job system, but something else that's going on with the system that's kind of blocking the jobs. So you can see that these are all here. So just to summarize, the Manage the Manager is a really cool feature. It's hidden, but it should be used to monitor the health and performance of the enterprise manager. We have a choice of various dashboards for the administrator to maintain the EM in a reliable and scalable way. There are lots of configurations that you can tweak that determine the operational efficiency of the EM administration. So monitoring them and tweaking them kind of helps to keep everything rolling well. And then, like Sumesh talked about, the best practices for achieving sizing and economies of scale using the compliance guidelines. So that covers the Manage the Manager. Now, Sumesh is going to go ahead and talk to you about the NearZero Downtime Patching feature that we are introducing soon. So on to you, Sumesh.
Yeah, thank you, Shefali. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so the next thing where we want to focus is on the zero downtime patching, because this has been one of the key important topic. And we are going to introduce we are going to ship this as part of the RU1. So right from RU1 of 13.5, customers will be able to apply the patching in zero downtime mode. So we also support the normal patching. But in this webinar, I'll talk about the zero downtime patching and what is the process and how the patching is done behind the scene, so that you'll understand what the process it takes. So with that, when it comes to patching, there's always a challenge or question from customers like, it is taking long downtime. I cannot patch it during a particular window because it's taking long time to complete the overall patching on all the OMSs. And also with the monthly release model, it is very difficult for customers to keep up pace with the latest updates, because every time when you do a patching, it requires an OMS shutdown and then restart. Because of that, customers cannot keep up with the latest updates, and they cannot really make use of the features that we are shipping with the release updates, right? And also, it's an expensive operation for admin, because he has to make sure the system is patched properly and all the additional OMSs are patched. And in some cases, he has to copy the scripts and all these things, right? So with that challenges, we want to solve it through the zero downtime framework. So this will provide an ability for customers to apply while the OMS is running, right? And then while the OMS is running, it provides a visibility into the monitoring of the targets for the duration. And then during the downtime, there will be a downtime which we've improved, and we will continue to improve in the further RUs. So the downtime has actually reduced when you compare with the 13.4 system. So, and also we have done automations around patching the additional OMSs. It is not like the previous case where you don't require to copy the scripts on the additional OMS, but we have automated through the job system where the additional OMS will be patched automatically. So those are key improvements we have done in the zero downtime. I'll talk about more in my further slides. So this zero downtime patching, which will come in the first RU of 13.5, will give an ability for customers to get the monitoring insights while they are doing the plant maintenance. And also it gives greater agility for customers to take the new features, because RUs we will be shipping the new features and bug fixes and stability, and also the PSR fixes. So those things customers can uptake it as and when they want. And also the overall window is actually reduced with respect to zero downtime patching. So if you look at the overall cycle, what it takes, right? Like it has got to the customer, it has got only two phases. One is the preparation phase. So in the preparation phase, it's like any other patching where you have to ensure the respective tools are in place, right? Example, your OMS patcher and your O patch, because we also update the O patch, the underlying O patch to the version that we require. And also in some cases, we also update customers to keep the OMS patcher to the latest version applicable for a given RU. So along with that, what we have done with respect to 13.5 is we are restricting on the database version. So if you want to take the RU of 13.5, the first RU of 13.5, then either if you want to go in the normal mode, which is the full downtime patching, or if you want to go into the zero downtime or NZD based patching, the requirement that we are putting is the database repository database should be or at least a minimum of 19.11 or higher, because 19.12 will come in July. But as of today, 19.11 is the latest on the 19C series from the database. So the minimum supported is 19.11. So if the repository database is below 19.11, then we are blocking the patching. The reason for that is There are fixes that went in from RDBMS side related to the EBR and other things. So we want to consume that, because if you look at our overall zero downtime patching framework and the behind the scene in the repository, right? We are making use of the EBR technology, which database already has. And some of the EBR things, we are already consuming it. But with respect to 1911, there are some fixes that went from the RDBMS team that is especially touching our editions and views and objects. So that is the reason we want to keep the database as a minimum 1911. So please ensure that if you want to take the RU of 13.5, the first RU of 13.5, make sure the repository is at least at 1911 or higher. So that is one of the important preparation step. And once you move on from the preparation, then it's the normal apply operation. So when you run the apply in the zero downtime mode, we internally process the different stages within that apply operation, which is not exposed, because for a customer, they just need to run the apply. But behind the scene, we internally run the update and cleanup. So as part of the apply, we create a clone home, because the apply is a running online operation, because your OMS is up and running. It is not, you're not shutting down the OMS. So we create a clone home and we create editions. So why we create clone home and editions? Because if you look at the patch content, then for a given RU or for any RU, either in 13.4 or 13.5, it contains two things. One is the Java layer and the other is the SQL or PL SQL layer. So inside the patch, we just make sure we take all the Java contents and load it inside the clone home. And that's the reason we are creating the clone home of the OMS. And whatever the artifacts that is coming inside the patch in terms of SQL and the PL SQL package, we just take those contents and then we load it inside the new edition. So that's why we are making use of the EBR mechanism here, where we create an edition and then we load all the SQL and PL SQL changes in it. So these two operations will be performed while the OMS is running, because the running application does not know there is a clone home exists or there is a edition exists inside the database until you do a restart. So the apply will get started, and then it creates a clone home. It will do all its job, like loading the jars and loading the PL SQL, the SQL changes. And then internally, it will process the update operation, where it will just go and stop the OMS, and then it will just apply all the switching of editions and other things. And then it will start the OMS and it will come out. So as part of starting the OMS, after the OMS is started, it will just submit a job to patch the additional OMSs. So we are making use of the job system, right? If you have multiple additional OMSs, then a job will be submitted, which will go and patch the additional OMSs. So once the primary OMS patching is completed, then you can access the EM console, because the primary OMS is done. Your admin server is up and running. You can actually access the EM console, and then you can go and check the job for the additional OMS patching. And each job is being triggered in parallel. Like if you have multiple OMSs, then it gets executed in parallel on each of the OMSs. So this is the overall patching cycle, and that's why I've just marked that, like the first two operations are online, where you see the uptime, and in between from the apply to the next cleanup, we just run the update internally, and that is where you will see the OMS getting bounced. So I'll just represent that in this to make it very clear, like what behind the scene we are doing it. So here, this is the OMS which is using the active edition, and the application users are monitoring the targets or accessing the EM console. So the moment administrator comes in, when he applies the patch on the OMS side, we create a clone home, like I said, and the repository, we create a patch edition, and all the changes on the SQL and other things goes inside the patch edition, and then the Java changes goes inside the clone home. And then once the patching is done, meaning the editions are created and the patches are loaded, then as part of the update phase, which is an internal phase, we run the OMS, we shut down the OMS, we switch the edition, and then we bring up the OMS to the new edition. So all this switching and changing will happen as part of the update, which is internally done by the OMS restart. So this is how behind the scene, when you run the apply operation, it happens on the OMS and the repository side. And this is a quick comparison between when you compare with the normal patching with NZRT, right? Because in the normal patching, the first step is to shut down the OMS, where you bring down all the OMSs and then you run the patching. But here, that step is eliminated, where you can run the OMS patcher while the OMS is up and running. And here, what we have done with respect to NZRT is we are introducing that the NZRT flag, because we just want to ensure that when you use that flag, it takes into the NZRT mode. So for the normal operation, for the normal apply, you can run the OMS patcher apply. But if you want to go into the NZRT mode, then you just need to pass that -NZRT flag so that the system understands that you're performing the patching in the NZRT mode. So once the patching is done, like I said, once the restart is done, then the OMS will be patched. And then on both on the normal patching and the additional OMS, on the normal patching and the NZRT patching, we are submitting the job through the job system for the additional OMS patching. Because till today, we ask customers to copy the scripts, and then we ask them to run the scripts to patch the OMSs. So even in 13.4 now for the, even in 13.5 for the normal patching, we are going to submit a job so that the overhead of copying that files is all reduced. So this is the automation that we have done for the additional OMS patching, and this is the quick comparison between the normal patching and the NZRT patching. And these are some of the benefits with respect to NZRT, where you get the downtime is greatly reduced, right? And also we also help you to take the newer RUs on a regular cadence, right? Because your downtime is reduced, you can quickly uptake and move on to the latest RUs. And also you get the visibility into the monitoring, where at least till the OMS is up, you can get your alerting and notifications for your critical targets. And also with respect to the patching itself, we have added automations to improve the additional OMS patching so that you don't need the overhead of the manual steps are being reduced. So these are some of the key benefits with respect to using the NZRT patching. And all these things are going to come up in the first RU of 13.5. And I can quickly share how it look in the NZRT world. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see, and I just want to give you a time check. We've got about 7 minutes left or so.
Yeah, I'll just quickly show you how it works. I'm not going to run the full patching because we have only 7 minutes left. So what I'll do is I'll just show that this is my 13.5 environment where the OMS is up and running. And this is a kind of a patch, a stimulated patch for the RU of 13.5. So as an admin, what I'll do is I've ensured that the OMS patcher and OPatch are updated to the expected value, right? And then I'll just say OMS patcher, and then I'll say OMS patcher apply, and I'll provide the patch location, right? And then I'll use that flag, which is -NZRT. So this is I've already executed the analyze, because analyze is the first step that we want customers to run it to make sure there are no patch conflicts. Make sure analyze is getting successful. So once that is done, because that is also an online operation, it doesn't require the OMS to be down. So once you complete that, then you'll be running the apply operation. So here you can see the OMS is up. So when I run the first command, so basically it just takes the patching, and then it creates a clone home, and then it actually runs the additions and other things, right? So let me share. So in the meantime, if there are any questions, we can take that, Tim. I'll just...
Yeah, Sumesh, this is great. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. We are getting some great questions from the audience. Thanks for participating there. So we've got some good interactions on that front. Can you, Sumesh, pop up your last screen? Let's just share those resources you have while we're answering questions.
Yeah. So these are some of the resources.
Great. So, so anyway, yeah, keep asking your questions in the Q&A panel there. I just wanted to highlight a few resources for everybody. We talked about the 13.5 announcement. Both Shefali and Sumesh are writing blogs on this topic, Manage the Manager and self-monitoring, and the NearZero Downtime patching. Those are coming real soon. It's on blogs.oracle.com OEM. We're pretty busy on social media too. We've got on YouTube, we've got demo series, we've got webinars recorded there. We've got a big following on Twitter as well, Oracle_management. And then you'll find a newly represented enterprise manager page on oracle.com. And then Sumesh gave me a bunch of links for documentation and support shown on the lower left there. And again, this is a webinar, part of the deep dive series. So we have webinars coupled with workshops so you can get some hands-on on a lot of these topics. So if this was interesting to you, you'll see more over there as well. And let me just look in the Q&A and see if there's anything we can talk about here. So one question, Sumesh, does NearZero Downtime patching also work for XCC?
No, this is this NearZero Downtime patching is for the OMS, right? So whether the OMS is inside the Exadata or the database is inside the Exadata.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused on that too. I think this is Enterprise Manager running on Exadata, which I don't hear that much about. So it may be talking about managing XCC. So I'm not sure on that question. Let's see. What else?
So another question that was there was, does NZDT require twice the storage space for OMS and GC Inst, and additional space for OMR? And are there any similar requirements in software library?
Good question.
Yeah, so on the repository, we don't require additional space, but on the OMS side, because we are creating the clone home will be exactly your size of your Oracle home, because in 13.5, that footprint is actually reduced. So if you look at the Oracle home size of the 13.5 binaries, it is not more than 20 GB, right? So that 20 GB is, again, we create the clone home, and the clone home can be dropped after the patching is completed. So when you perform the next patching, if there is a clone home exist, we take that and we do a comparison. And then if there are any changes between the current home and the clone home, we actually delete it and we recreate it. And if we don't have the clone home, then every time when you run the patching in ZDT mode, we create a clone home. So as a best practice, you can clean up after the patching is done, because it's an online operation. And if you keep the clone home, then that space gets occupied in your file system.
Great, thanks, Mish. And the other question was, what is the expected downtime during the switching of the editions? And if a problem occurs during the primary node updates, do we automatically fall back to the previous home edition of the database?
Yes. So in case of failure, we just create a resume script. So from that, so the rollback, rollback is only when you do a complete patching. Like once the patching is successful, then if you want to roll back, we roll back. But in case of failure, if there is a failure in the patching, then the patching will get stopped, and then we generate the resume script, right? So we have to rectify the failure and then run the resume script. So rollback is only done when you actually complete the patching and when you want to roll back a particular patch. But in terms of failure, the failure also depends upon where it failed, because we are just creating the additions and clone home. And if the failure is in the update phase, then we have to see how to resume it. So that's the only resume point. So rollback, from that point, I don't think it will be done. Unless you create a restore point on the database and then you bring up the database again and then bring up the OMS.
And then the big question about what do you think is the expected downtime duration phase?
Yeah, the internal testing is going on, but the downtime has been greatly improved, meaning we have seen a significant reduction in the downtime when we compared with 13.4. So the final numbers are still in the testing process. So we'll be able to update on that front sooner.
And then it also depends upon the environment that you have, multi-OMS and how many nodes.
Right.
All right. I just want to be sensitive to the time, and thanks to both Shefali and Sumesh for your presentations. And thank you, audience, for your attention and participation. We're at the top of the hour. So we will continue answering these questions online as long as we can. But I just wanted to say thank you to both our presenters and our audience for participating. So if you do have additional questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. So I just want to show that this is the patching. So the OMS is up. So we'll just, like here, like I said, we create a clone home and it doesn't disturb the running OMS. So this is the first step that we do as part of the NCDT patching. And if you want to have the clone home, right, you just need to ensure that you have a space on the file system. And once the patching is completed, you can go and delete the clone home. And for the next patching, we create a new clone home. Yeah, so this is, I just want to show here, which I was not able to show in the previous one.
Thanks for that, Sumesh. Sorry for cutting you off there. This is really appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for participation. And we are going to call it a wrap.